Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go into the best ways to make nodes communicate, and you have four possibilities here. You can either directly call things, you can emit and receive signals, and you can have a global script that you access from anywhere. You can also use something like groups to communicate. And yeah, let's go into the first one, the direct calling method. So for this, I have set up a little player here and a little scene. The player is in the scene. There is also a fountain, a background, and a UI. But for now, I want to show the calling options here in the script of the player. So for this, I have a ready print function here, and that means it will print immediately one of these functions. And one of the usual things that you can do is, for example, having self. So basically targeting the one node that basically is in the script itself. So printing itself here would basically just print out the player character body 2D. So basically just this node here will be printed if you print self. Then you have, for example, get parent, that basically you will, in the get parent function, it's equal to, it just gets the parent node. So it's also like a get node function. So if I print get parent, I will get the node of the room. So for example, here I get the room that is above the player. So for example, the player is underneath the room. So calling the get parent will take the room node. Then next would be getting children, or for example, the get child function. The get child function is a bit different because it has an index down here. So getting the first child, you have to put in index 0 and then going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So get child 0 would take the collision shape 2D here. So printing this would mean we will take the collision shape 2D and print out the collision shape 2D. So let's comment out this one here again. And then we go to the get node one here. This one is basically the one that you're going to use the most. So get node is really the standard way of accessing things. And then you say get node, and usually you take you tell Godot where it finds the node. So this is the path to the node, which means in this case you can go up the tree. This is very similar to the get parent here. So the node path point dash dash, and you have the dash here and the point, and that goes up the tree. Then this one goes up the tree again, which basically just means you go up to the room and then to the scene tree, and then you pick the room and the player and then the animation player. And this is exactly the same. I mean, if I print it now, it will be the animation player, but it would be exactly the same if I just took the animation player and dropped it down here. So this dollar is basically the same as get node and then the name of the animation player you can see down here. So this is exactly the same function. So if I do it like this, it should do exactly the same and print animation player down here. This does exactly the same. So yeah, getting access to something directly usually means it's the best way to do it is if it's in one scene, so that doesn't change that much. So usually if you have, for example, the player and underneath you have like the animation player, maybe some sprites or collision shapes, and you have to directly access that, that is usually a way you can do it. You can also do it if the scene tree always stays the same, but usually you don't want to do it because these kind of, especially the node paths, can change and break kind of how the code works. So usually you want to access nodes directly only when, basically only when they're in a scene together. That's usually the best way to do things directly. And there is a trick if you don't want to be dependent on the node path. You can also take a node that you want to access, right-click it, and access it as a unique name. This will make the percentage symbol appear here, and then you can make a get node, find the unique name by accessing it like this, and then this script will go through the whole scene tree and try to find this unique named node. So if I play here, it will find the sprite dead with the unique name sprite dead. The next way of sending information or sending information to multiple nodes is sending signals. And signals, usually you want to either signal up a tree or maybe in a tree from one scene to another. Sometimes you want to signal to a global script or something like that. But usually the idea is that you call down and you signal up a tree. So for example, we had this player that calls down. So it calls the sprites, for example, or the animation player with these kind of call functions or these kind of get children, get node functions. But for example, if we want to set up a signal, so I set up this kind of little symbol here. There is a player that gets thirsty and I want him to be able to drink from the water fountain here. And if I want to create a signal, there's multiple ways of doing that. But for example, I'm jumping into the UI here and the UI has variable called water. I'm starting off at 15 and in the process function, which means nearly all the time, I will check if the water is close to or larger than 0 and then reduce the amount of water in every frame. And I will take once again here, calling the progress bar in the UI. So I have a progress bar set up here and it's under a VBox container. So direct calling VBox container and then the progress bar and then changing the value of it to the water. So here, once again, we access the direct thing here and change it to the water that it is right now. So then if water is less than 0, we will emit the signal thirst. This is first we create the signal thirst and it's the same as a variable. So we just say signal and then we give it a name thirst. We can also give it a variable, for example, amount. Yeah, let's say it's the amount signal thirst and we're sending the information amount. And then we emit the signal if something happens. So this is called emit signal and we emit the signal thirst. So this one here, this is the name. So this one has to match and you can also give it an amount. So for example, the water. So we take the water that we have and we send it with the signal. And then we have to define who actually listens to the signal. And for this, we can either do it in code or via script. So I will, or in the editor, and in the editor, it's usually a bit easier. And some like it in code, some like it in the editor. For now, I will do it here in the editor. So I take the UI node and then we can already see thirst, the signal that I created here. I double click it. And if I want to send the signal, for example, to the player, I could go to the player and double click on the player code. And the player code will then get this function on UI thirst with the amount already here. So I could, for example, print the amount. And then we can see if this functions if I press play. And we will actually get the print immediately as we hit 0 on the water supply on the UI. And of course, this is not really well built up. You usually don't want to have this variable kind of happening in the UI, but that's just to show how the signal will be sent out. And you can see down here that the player actually print this as soon as the UI hit water of 0. And then it's just sending out the signal. And once we have it connected to the player, this will actually always print the amount as soon as we are receiving the thirst signal. The third way of accessing and sending information is via the global you can go to the project settings and set up the globals up here and with these autoloads. So first you have to make a script or a scene, and then you can set the path here or just load it. Scripts global, open, then you give it a name, add it, and then you have it here, global variable enabled. So this is how you set it up in this version of Godot. And then you can have this script accessed everywhere you want, basically. So this is quite nice. You can also open up the script here, global. For example, we could say, instead of having the water in the UI, we can actually have it here, which would make a little bit more sense. Water equals to 20. So let's put this one, the variable water, in the globals, and in the player, I could, in the ready variable, I could print out the following: global, I think it's like this, global dot water. Let's save it like this and hit play. And then you can see it printed out 20. So this is how we access a global variable. And you can also put in functions. Here you can put in node references. So this is kind of a thing that you can access from anywhere. You can also have some, for example, options here, like, I don't know, screen resolutions. You can have color options. You can have different things that you want to store, that you want to access from anywhere. These kind of things, these are always nice to have in globals and also functions. And you can also have node references, so you can store what is the player node, for example, here, and these kind of things. That's what you can do with the global autoload. And the last one method I want to touch up on is the group method, which is also really, really nice and has some upsides to some of the other methods I mentioned so far. So, for example, we could go into the UI here in the room scene and go to the groups and then add a new group, and we could call it UI, for example, plus UI. Okay. And now with this one here activated, the UI node, and you can also see this symbol, it's in the group UI. And having it in a group gives it access to different kind of functions. For example, we can get tree. So this is just, it takes the whole tree and then get here the get first node in group, or there's a few methods which you can use. For example, get node in group or get nodes in group. So you can either get the first node in group if you only have one in the group, or you can also access all nodes in that group. But for now, I will just take the first node in the group and UI, and then we can access this node here. And basically take everything that we need from here. Either we have a function here that we want to start. So for example, if we had a function called, I don't know, let's call it function die. And then we just Q3, for example, here. Yeah. Then we take the player, and then we say get tree, get first node in group UI, and then dot die. And then if we start play, then it should just disappear immediately, because the UI just Q3'd, which means it disappeared immediately. And having this method, the groups and calling groups, it's actually really useful, because you just have You have less dependencies of, for example, these kind of node paths or something else. Like signals can be a bit heavy to kind of manipulate and keeping track of, and having the call methods on groups can be super easy because you can have multiple nodes in a group. For example, you can have all enemies having the enemy group, and then you just call all enemies, and then you have a function like taking damage, and then all enemies in an area take damage, for example. And obviously you can also add a group via GDScript. So for example, if I want to add myself to a group, I could use self.add_to_group and then UI. And then you can have different kind of functions that you can use. For example, get nodes in group with the group name that will retrieve an array of all nodes in that group. Or you can use call group with the group name and then a method name. And then you would call the method on all nodes in this group. And yeah, I really like having like a mix of globals, calling, and using groups, and then obviously having signals to sometimes signal up the tree, or a signal between siblings. Those are usually the most common ways of communicating in between each other. But yeah, if I forgot anything, this should just give an overview of what you can use and the most commonly used ones. If you have any questions, just comment. If you have any favorite ways that you use, for example, signals or whatever, let us know in the comments if I did something wrong, or if I need to make a follow-up video on these kind of topics, because some topics like signals can get quite deep quite quickly. And but this is all you need to make a game in the beginning, and to make the scenes and the nodes communicate with each other. And so thank you guys for tuning in. I would really love if you liked the video, gave me a follow if you want to see future videos and be notified if I release a new video. And thank you guys for tuning in, and see you soon. Bye bye.